Well, as East Africa struggles through a drought, scientists say climate change may be making the situation worse. VOA Steve Baragona looks at how a warming planet may be altering the weather patterns that bring rain to the region.
The rains failed late last year, and the rains before that were meager. Livestock have died, crops have failed. Famine threatens Somalia for the second time this decade. While drought is not uncommon in this dry region, it's gotten worse, says University of California at Santa Barbara climate scientist Chris Funk.
Yeah, so what we've seen over the last, say, 35 years is that the rainfall during what's called the long rains has declined substantially.
Funk says the explanation may lie in an atmospheric cycle that links East Africa and the Pacific Ocean. Warm, wet air rises over the western Pacific, causing rain over Southeast Asia. On the other side of the cycle, dry air descends over East Africa. That's why not much rain falls here, even in normal years. But when the western Pacific is warmer, it pushes the whole system harder. More rain over Southeast Asia and more dry air descending on East Africa. More dry air means more drought. The models say it should be getting wetter, but experts increasingly think the models may be flawed in this area. Funk and others are working on it. The short term is more clear. The western Pacific is still warmer than average, which means the forecast is for a third season of disappointing rains. Steve Baragona, VOA News.
Well, if you are a refugee in Africa, Uganda may be one of the better places to call home. Newcomers are allowed freedom of movement and can own their own businesses. From the refugee settlement of northern Uganda, VOA's Jill Craig reports on the country's unique refugee policy.
No one would choose to be a refugee, but many are forced to do just that. They flee violence at home, face restrictions in their new country, and are usually dependent upon others for food, water, and health care. But Uganda, a country hosting more than 1.1 million refugees and asylum seekers, is trying to ease their burdens with what many analysts call its progressive refugee policy. Senior settlement officer in the Ugandan Prime Minister's office, Solomon Osakan, works with the UN humanitarian agency to coordinate refugee operations in the country. He says Uganda's approach comes from a Pan-African mindset of helping Africans in trouble.
This policy emanates from our leaders. Previously, most of our leaders were displaced as refugees. They sought asylum in neighboring countries and went as far as Europe. In that time, this changed their perception and thinking that when you're a refugee, you need to be supported to survive, otherwise hostility only worsens.
Uganda has refugee settlements, not camps. Host communities have donated much of the land for these settlements. Refugees receive a 50 by 50 meter plot for shelter and cultivation, enjoy freedom of movement, receive employment waivers in order to work, and can start businesses. But not everyone is pleased. Near the recently opened Mvepi settlement, some local people complain that so-called outsiders are getting the jobs, not them.
But the bad thing here is we are lacking of a job. Those who are here, they don't give a job for us.
The United Nations and Uganda's government respond that many of the jobs in the settlements require skills that are not always found in the local communities. Despite his grievances, Charles Achema says he is happy his country is hosting refugees.
Yes, you have known Uganda is a God-loving country. That's why they welcome refugees here. Yes.
Still, many refugees here complain of food shortages. The United Nations has cited underfunding as the problem. The United Nations says it requires roughly $500 million for its 2017 Uganda operations. But as of mid-March, it had only received about $35 million, 7% of the total. Jill Craig, VOA News in northern Uganda.
It's time now for a short break, but before we go, a reminder to visit our website. It's channelstv.com for all the latest information around the clock. You can also find us at youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come, it's good news from the medical community. A painful affliction is close to being eradicated, thanks in part to the charity of a former U.S. president. We'll be back. In Cameroon, a young entrepreneur is determined to change the trend of foreign brands dominating the baby food market by producing the first commercially homemade option, the infant cereal, made from locally sourced cereals and grains like soybeans, is free of preservatives. Take a look.
Meet Cameroon's baby food entrepreneur, Pascaline Nanda. She produces locally made commercial infant cereal, Bisolak, a brand of baby food made from soya, wheat, fruits, milk and sugar. The manufacturing process begins with boiling and roasting soya beans, which is later ground into powder. She then mixes the soya powder with other cereals to make the baby meal.
From 6 months, breast milk is not enough to feed a baby. So when I traveled to my village, my husband noticed that the women in the village would roast wheat and would feed it to their children to help them grow. So I had an idea to use the same wheat to make something else with it. And after several trials, Bisolak was born.
Pascaline works with various baby clinics in the city where she also introduces her products to mothers. She sells about 150 kilograms of Bisolak a week, but says she would be able to process more if she had the right equipment and financing.
The challenges are many because, first of all, there isn't enough equipment for manufacturing. When I started selling, I was going from door to door trying to market what I was selling, which was not enough. I was packaging the products in transparent plastic bags. I was outsourcing all equipment.